Got the B35 build all finished now. I've done a couple flights with it and made a couple of adjustments, and I think I should have it flying pretty well now. I'm going to try another flight here while there's a little tiny bit of sun out. It's been just cloudy and raining for weeks and weeks here in Vancouver. Hello, thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be taking a look at the SpeedyBee B35. So a 3.5 inch Cinewhoop. SpeedyBee has supplied me with all the parts to build this and put it together. Well, except for the VTX, I put my own in here. But everything I say in the video is all my own opinion. SpeedyBee hasn't had any influence over the content. So I actually got a frame and motors and stack and everything and put it together myself. The stack in here is the SpeedyBee F4 Mini with a BLHeli S35 amp ESC. The motors are these SpeedyBee 2006 1950 kV, and that's for running on 6S. These motors are a little bit lower kV than some of the other Cinewhoops in this class, and well, I'll get to more about talking about the flight feel and everything, but I think I actually liked the lower kV motors because the higher kV you have, the more pop you're going to get in your throttle. Like when you're trying to keep a nice smooth steady line along close to the ground, if you blip the throttle a little bit on lower kV motors, you're not going to notice the altitude change in the Cinewhoop as much. So I think I liked these 1950 kV motors. They seem just about right to me. So I've been flying it with my Hero 11 Mini, which is temporarily working, and a 1100 milliamp hour 6S. It's got a special battery plate here for mounting the battery. And so you can go either toilet tank style or the regular forward and back. I find that you need a pretty small battery to fit it in forward and back if you've got a GoPro on here. So you're pretty much stuck with the toilet tank style. But I like that for this setup, the way they allow you to adjust where the strap goes in here. So I've just set it so that it's going as far back as I can to balance out the weight of the GoPro up front. And this seems to work pretty well for me. I guess while I'm on the talking about the battery here, I got 6 minutes and 45 seconds flight time with an 1100 milliamp hour. This is a somewhat used, so not brand new. So I'd say you could probably break 7 minutes flight time with a Hero 11 and a brand new 1100 milliamp hour 6S. I'll take this GoPro off here so we can see the frame and everything a little better. The frame comes with these TPU mounts and everything, and the bolt and the acorn nut here for holding on the GoPro. Before I get too far into it here, I should probably talk about the build process that I went through. There's manuals and build instructions for all of SpeedyBee's products. So there's a manual on their website that you can access. I'll put a link down below in the description. That shows you how to assemble the frame, which fasteners go where, and yeah, how to put it all together. There was even actually some information on the recommended length to cut the motor wires depending on which stack you have. So I thought that was quite handy. They had the measurements they had set out for the different stacks and motor wires seemed bang on. So that made that part of the build pretty easy. I'm just going to take this apart a little bit and show you a couple of the things that I did have not trouble with, but the tricky parts to look out for when you're building one of these. For this top section, this is where the flight controller is mounted and the ESC is underneath this. There's 6 bolts holding it on. Once you've loosened them all off, then it just lifts out. Once you've got the whole thing assembled and put together, it gets a little bit tricky to separate it and pull it apart here. But you can see that having a little bit of extra length on some of your wires, or don't cut them too short. Like I left the wires for my Vista unit, I just left them full length. Wires for my Crossfire receiver, I just left them full length the way they come, and that makes it a little bit easier so you can separate things apart like this if you need to do any adjustments. I guess while I got it open here, I can show you there's this little USB plug thing that they give you that goes through and then comes out the back here. This is kind of neat. So you can still plug into the USB for the flight controller back here. One of the parts that I found a little bit tricky was this section by the back standoff here. It gets pretty tight trying to feed all your wires through there, but there is enough room. You just have to be careful and feed them through gently, and there's enough space there. The only real issue I had back here was with my crossfire antenna. I just had to chop away a little bit of the TPU in the mount here so that I can get the antenna pointed down inside so that this part didn't kink this cable when I put it together. But yeah, pushed it down inside a little bit there. And now it all goes together nice without the cable getting squeezed. I just double-sided taped my receiver to the side there. That seems to be working fine for me. So it's a relatively easy build. Put the video transmitter in last. Get all your ESC and flight controller done with the receiver and everything. Leave your receiver loose and don't stick it to the side yet. And that way you'll be able to pull things apart a little bit more. And then when you're finally all done everything, you just put the tape the receiver down as the like the last thing you do. I really like how neat this works here, like the power coming off of the ESC, and then I just wrapped it around my capacitor here and poked it up at the back. So it's a perfect spot for the power cord to come through. And then when you want to get it back together, you just got to get the antenna back around the motors here. And then I like to just watch where my wires are going and push them off to the side a little bit if I can. All them back together nice. Yeah, so altogether it was a fairly easy build. A little bit tighter than I'm used to. I've made so many 7-inch drones now. But yeah, it wasn't bad. Overall, the build went pretty smoothly. It was fairly easy to get together, and all the instructions and documentation that SpeedyBee had made it fairly easy. And I'll also put a link down below for the PIDs I used, because they've got preset PIDs that you can use to load on here, which is good because I have no idea how to tune a Cinewhoop, and from looking at the PIDs the way they were, I would have never guessed that. Like it just tunes so much differently than a freestyle quad or a 7-inch long range or something. So that's great that they included the PID tune in there, and I found it worked pretty well. I tried this first. I first tried flying this with 5-bladed props, and I had some vibration issues, but as soon as I changed to the 3-bladed props, the vibration issues were gone. So I think that's probably just they had the P gains set for these specific props, and then the 5-bladed props are a little more aggressive, so it'd probably be fine with the 5-bladed props. I would just need to adjust the tune and probably lower the P gains a bit. But I was plenty happy with the power and flight feel that it had with these 3-bladed props, so I'm probably just going to stick with these. Likely be a little bit longer of a flight time too. Oh, now another one of the parts for the another one of the things about building this was the LED strip. It's pretty cool how this LED strip goes in. There's a little control chip that's shaped just right to fit in underneath here, and then this TPU part that goes over top of it, but still gives you access to a button on the little LED control board, which this can be used as a boot button. Then also when your quad's plugged in, you can just use this to change the colors of the lights or the pattern of the lighting. The LEDs for this thing are actually pretty cool. It's a fully programmable RGB LED strip, and you can change it by, you can change the colors just by pushing the button here. Or of course it's SpeedyBee, so you can do it by Bluetooth as well. It's pretty bright out, so it's not that easy to see here. But it's got some cool options for colors. All right, I'm gonna leave it on that one. Take this thing for a flight now. Now as for how this was to fly, I'll include some footage here to show you some of the flying I've done with it. Unfortunately, the weather has been really bad. It's been hard to get out and get footage with this lately. So I was talking earlier about how I thought these 1950 kV motors, being a little bit lower kV than some of the other Cinewhoops this size, they made it feel like it was a little bit easier to maintain a nice smooth line going forward. And then I did some more playing with some settings after that. So to smooth out the flight feel even more for cruising along and just keeping a nice steady line above the ground, I put the throttle scaling to 90%. And then I also added a little bit of expo to the throttle. 40% throttle, I added 15% expo. So between the throttle scaling and that little bit of expo on the throttle, that actually made quite a noticeable difference, smoothing it out even more. It made it really easy to maintain a nice, even, steady height above the ground. So great for trying to fly underneath objects. And I've also just started playing with the RC smoothing factor for the throttle stick. So now I think raising that up a little bit more, that's going to make this even smoother on the throttle to fly. And I think that's really one of the keys with a Cinewhoop, is having that really smooth throttle response so that there's no jarring movements as you're flying.